Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. The galactic tradition: no human nuke catch the spear, win the warrior. Vex Ratrell stood at the edge of the sacred combat ring, her three hearts pounding in a chaotic rhythm that even the most accomplished Dramian composer couldn't replicate. Pakium, the twin sons of Dramv, beat down on her iridescent scales, creating a dazzling light show that signaled her status as a warrior of the highest caliber, not that she needed any extra indicators. The 27 notches on her ceremonial spear spoke louder than any fancy light reflection of her premium genetics. By the moons of Dramak, could these pre-combat rituals be any more tedious? She muttered to her second-in-command, Klotz, who was busy applying the traditional combat oils to her scales. I mean, seriously, we've been doing the same routine for what, 12,000 years? You'd think someone would have streamlined the process by now. Klotz rumbled a laugh that sounded like rocks in a garbage disposal. Tradition is the backbone of our society, Commander. Without it, we'd be no better than those chaotic Volians from the next star system over. Right, because heaven forbid we skip the part where I have to recite the names of every ancestor who ever wielded a spear. That'll take half the day alone. Vexra rolled all three of her eyes simultaneously, a trick that had taken her years to master and still impressed the junior warriors. The Dramian combat arena was filling quickly with spectators. Today's ritual combat was particularly important, as it would determine who would lead the next diplomatic mission to the neighboring systems. Vexra had her multifaceted eyes set firmly on that prize. 20 years as the commander of the elite spear battalion had prepared her for this moment. Her opponent, Drazak, was stretching his limbs at the opposite end of the arena. He was larger than Vexra by at least 100 pounds, but she knew from experience that size rarely determined the victor in ritual combat. Skill, speed, and strategy were far more important, and in those departments, she had Drazak beat by light years. Your ceremonial headdress, Commander. Klotz presented her with a ridiculous contraption composed of rare metals and the feathers of extinct birds. It weighed approximately as much as a small moon. Fantastic, because fighting wasn't challenging enough without balancing a small building on my head. Vexra snatched the headdress and placed it atop her cranial ridge with practiced ease. How do I look? Ready to lead a diplomatic mission or ready to star in a historical comedy? Both, Commander. Definitely both. Klotz's mandibles clicked in amusement. The ceremonial drums began their ancient rhythm, signaling the combat would begin soon. Vexra gripped her spear, a beautiful weapon crafted from the hardest wood of the sacred Dramakian forests and tipped with a metal alloy that could pierce almost any material known in their part of the galaxy. Remember, Commander, Klotz whispered as he made the final adjustments to her combat garb, the ancient law of combat states that if your opponent catches your spear mid-throw, you are bound to them for life. Blah, 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 Vexra finished for him, her tone dripping with sarcasm. That hasn't happened in about 8 centuries, Klotz. I think I'm safe. Little did she know that the universe had a peculiar sense of humor, and that very day, a strange ship from a distant world called Earth was entering Dramian orbit, carrying a human diplomat named Marcus Chen who was about to turn her carefully ordered world completely upside down. As the final horn blared across the arena, Vexra took a deep breath and stepped into the sacred combat ring. Let's get this over with, she muttered, twirling her spear with expert precision. I've got actual important things to do today. The human arrives. Marcus Chen stared out the viewport of the diplomatic vessel, Peaceful Overture, as it descended through the swirling atmosphere of Dramak V. His face was a perfect mask of diplomatic calm, but internally, total chaos. The Dramians were the first non-humanoid species humanity had encountered that hadn't immediately tried to blow them out of the sky, and he was not about to mess this up. Ambassador Chen will be landing in approximately 3 minutes, announced Captain Reeves through the ship's comms. Dramian Control has directed us to the ceremonial landing pad. Apparently, we're arriving during some sort of important cultural event. Wonderful, Marcus replied, straightening his formal diplomatic uniform for the 12th time. Nothing says smooth first contact like crashing a party. Captain Reeves laughed. The xenanthropologists say the Dramians appreciate directness and humor. You'll do fine. Right, because a species with 3 hearts, scales, and mandibles will definitely share our sense of humor. Marcus ran a hand through his short black hair. What could possibly go wrong? The ship touched down with barely a tremor, Captain Reeves showing off again, and Marcus took a deep breath. 6 years of diplomatic training, 4 languages from Earth, and 2 alien languages learned in record time had led to this moment. He grabbed the ceremonial gift case and headed toward the airlock. The Dramian atmosphere hit him like a wall of humid heat as the doors slid open. The gravity was slightly stronger than Earth's standard, making him feel heavier, slower. Marcus stepped onto alien soil, his eyes taking in the massive arena structure nearby where thousands of Dramakians were gathered and a small delegation approached, led by a Dramakian in elaborate robes. Marcus activated his translator implant and offered the greeting gesture he'd practiced for weeks. Greetings, noble representatives of Dram 6. I am Marcus Chen, Ambassador of Earth and the United Systems Alliance. I come in peace and friendship. He bowed slightly, careful not to make it too deep, which would signal submission in Dramakian culture, or too shallow, which would be an insult. The robed Dramian's mandibles clicked rapidly, their equivalent of surprised laughter. Ambassador Chen, your arrival is most fortuitous. You are just in time to witness the sacred combat of leadership. I am First Facilitator GRA. Please follow me to the honored visitor's observation platform. Marcus nodded diplomatically, though his mind was racing. Combat? Leadership? The briefings hadn't mentioned this. As he followed GRA toward the massive arena, he noticed the Dramakians giving him curious looks. Some seemed fascinated, others wary, and a few, particularly the ones in combat gear, looked downright hostile. So, Marcus ventured carefully as they approached the arena entrance, what exactly am I about to witness? The first facilitator guided Marcus to an elevated observation platform, explaining the ritual combat with enthusiastic mandible clicks. The victor will lead our next major diplomatic mission. Commander Vexra is our finest warrior. She has never lost a ritual combat. Marcus nodded politely, watching as a female Dramian with brilliantly iridescent scales dispatched her opponent with almost casual ease. Her movements were fluid, precise, and displayed a lethal grace that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. That was efficient, Marcus commented as the defeated Dramian limped from the arena. Commander Vexra is the pride of our military caste, GRA said, his voice tinged with reverence. 27 victories in ritual combat. A record unmatched in 8 generations. The victorious Dramian raised her spear, and the crowd erupted in rhythmic stomping that made the entire structure vibrate. Marcus grabbed a railing to steady himself, accidentally knocking over a ceremonial vessel of sacred combat oil. The crowd went silent instantly, completely. The kind of silence that made Marcus' diplomatic instincts scream, retreat, in capital letters inside his brain. Did I just do something bad? He whispered to GRA, whose 3 eyes had widened to comical proportions. The sacred combat oil, spilled on the day of victory, directed at the victor, GRA stammered, backing away from Marcus. This is a ritual challenge. By ancient law, you have challenged Commander Vexra. I've what? No, this was an accident. I'm a diplomat, not a warrior. Marcus frantically tried to explain, but the damage was done. Down in the arena, Vexra stared up at the observation platform, her 3 hearts skipping beats in perfect synchronization. She'd just defeated Drazak, securing her position as the next diplomatic mission leader, when the bizarre alien creature had issued a challenge. The audacity! Who does this pink, scaleless creature think he is? She snarled to Klotz, who looked equally shocked. It appears to be the Earth ambassador, Klotz replied. Their ship arrived during the combat. And his first official act is to challenge me? Vexra laughed, the sound sharp and dangerous. Is that how humans conduct diplomacy? Through combat? The arena chief approached, looking uncomfortable. Commander Vexra, by ancient law, you must accept this challenge or forfeit your victory today. Vexra's mandibles clicked rapidly in irritation. Forfeit to some soft-skinned alien who probably doesn't even know which end of a spear to hold. Not happening. Upon the platform, Marcus was desperately trying to resolve the situation. Facilitator GRA, there must be some way to withdraw the challenge. This is a cultural misunderstanding. Ancient law is absolute, GRA said solemnly. The challenge has been issued in front of witnesses. It must be answered. But I don't even know how to fight Dramian style, Marcus protested. GRA's mandibles twitched in what might have been sympathy. The law allows for simplified combat for off-worlders. One throw each of the ceremonial spear. Whoever strikes closest to their opponent's central heart is the victor. And if I refuse? Marcus asked, already knowing the answer wouldn't be good. Refusal would be a grave diplomatic insult that would end all possibility of alliance between our peoples, GRA stated flatly. Down in the arena, Vexra pointed her spear directly at Marcus. I accept the Earth creature's challenge, she announced, her voice carrying throughout the arena. Let him come down and face me if he has the courage. The crowd roared its approval as Marcus closed his eyes and muttered, 6 years of diplomatic training, and nobody once mentioned, don't spill the ritual oil. Fantastic. The catch. Marcus stood in the center of the arena, holding a ceremonial spear that felt awkwardly balanced in his hands. The Dramachian crowd buzzed with excitement, placing bets on how quickly Vexra would humiliate the strange human diplomat. 10 feet away, Vexra twirled her spear with expert precision, sizing up her unusual opponent. The human looked ridiculous in his formal diplomatic attire, now hastily modified to allow for movement. His face lacked proper scales, his eyes were pathetically limited to just 2, and his skin appeared soft and vulnerable. This would be her easiest victory yet. I really want to emphasize that this is all a misunderstanding, Marcus called out, trying one last time to reason with her. On Earth, we typically resolve diplomatic issues through conversation, not combat. Oh, on Drank, we believe actions reveal more truth than words, Vexra replied, her translator converting her clicks and hisses into English. Consider this an accelerated form of diplomacy. She flashed what passed for a Dramian smile, all teeth and no warmth. The arena chief stood between them, explaining the simplified rules. 1 throw each. Closest to the opponent's central heart is the victor. Commander Vexra, as the challenged, you throw first. Vexra nodded, pleased. She'd end this farce quickly. Wait, Marcus interrupted. Where exactly is my central heart located? In humans, we only have one, and it's slightly left of center. This revelation caused murmurs throughout the arena. Only one heart. How did humans survive? Vexra clicked her mandibles in amusement. One heart. Your species is even more primitive than I thought. She raised her spear, aiming precisely at the left side of his chest. This will be painfully brief, Ambassador. With a fluid motion that exhibited centuries of Dramian evolutionary refinement, Vexra launched her spear directly at Marcus' heart. The weapon cut through the air with deadly accuracy, its trajectory perfect. Time seemed to slow for Marcus. His diplomatic training hadn't covered spear dodging, but his recreational interests had. Years of playing catcher in college baseball kicked in, an automatic response to an incoming projectile. His hand shot out. The arena went completely silent as Marcus Chen, Ambassador of Earth, caught the ceremonial spear one-handed, just inches from his chest. The momentum pushed him back slightly, but his feet remained planted, his grip firm on the weapon. Vexra's 3 eyes widened to their absolute limit. Her mandibles went slack. This was impossible. No one had caught a ceremonial spear in combat for 8 centuries. The implications hit her like a meteor strike. The arena chief dropped to his knees in shock. The crowd erupted in chaotic noise. First facilitator GRA began frantically consulting the ancient law texts. Was that not allowed? Marcus asked uncertainly, still holding the spear. I just didn't want to get impaled. Call it a diplomatic reflex. Klotz approached Vexra, who stood frozen in disbelief. Commander, he whispered urgently, the ancient law of combat clearly states. I know what it states, Vexra snapped, her voice carrying across the now hushed arena. She stared at the human, who looked back with confusion written across his strange, scaleless face. The arena chief rose solemnly and approached Marcus. Ambassador Chen of Earth, by catching Commander Vexra's spear, you have invoked one of our most sacred and binding laws. According to traditions dating back 12,000 years, Commander Vexra is now bound to you for life. Marcus blinked. I'm sorry, she's what now? The binding. Vexra's mandibles clicked in rapid succession, the Dramian equivalent of hyperventilation. The arena had emptied as officials rushed to consult the ancient texts, leaving her with Klotz, the human, and a small contingent of ceremonial guards who looked as uncomfortable as guards could look while maintaining ceremonial posture. This cannot be happening, Vexra growled, pacing back and forth. I am Commander Vexra Trell, 27 combat victories, destined to lead the most important diplomatic mission in Dramakian history. I cannot be bound to some accident-prone alien with only one heart. Marcus stood awkwardly, holding the ceremonial spear, trying to make sense of the situation. Look, I'm really sorry about catching your spear. Where I come from, catching things is actually considered a good skill, not, a life-altering event that binds people together. Klotz stepped forward, data pad in hand. Commander, I've reviewed the ancient combat texts. The law is clear. When a warrior's spear is caught in ritual combat, they are bound to the catcher for life. It was originally meant to identify superior warriors worthy of serving together. I know the history, Klotz, Vexra snapped. But surely there's an exemption for off-worlders? For diplomatic incidents? For accidents? Actually, first facilitator GRA said, returning with a delegation of elders, there is precedent. In the Third Dynasty, an ambassador from the Varolian Empire caught a spear. The texts record that they served together for 12 years until the Varolian's natural death. Vexra's scales blanched to a pale blue. 12 years? What is the human lifespan anyway? Approximately 80 Earth years, Marcus offered helpfully, then regretted it when Vexra made a strangled clicking sound. What exactly does bound for life mean in practical terms? Marcus directed his question to GRA, hoping for a reasonable answer. Is this like a symbolic thing we can acknowledge and move past? The elders exchanged glances before the oldest stepped forward. Her scales had faded to a dull gray, but her 3 eyes were sharp with intelligence. The binding is both spiritual and practical, Ambassador. Commander Vexra must remain within 100 paces of you at all times, serve as your protector, advisor, and companion. She is bound to follow where you lead, though she may counsel you in all matters. That's impossible. Vexra exploded. I have duties, responsibilities. I'm supposed to lead the diplomatic mission to the Troll sector. And now you will accompany the ambassador instead, the elder stated firmly. Wait, Marcus interjected, diplomatic training kicking in. We're in the middle of establishing relations between our worlds. Having a respected Dramian commander as an advisor could actually be beneficial for both sides. Perhaps we can find a way to honor this tradition while also serving both our people's interests. Vexra stared at him, her anger momentarily replaced by surprise. The human was trying to be diplomatic in the middle of this catastrophe. You don't understand, human, she said, her voice lower now. Among my people, this binding is more significant than what you call marriage. It supersedes all other relationships, all other duties. I am now, in the eyes of Dramian law, part of you. Marcus swallowed hard. Oh. I see. Oh. Vexra's mandibles clicked once, sharply. And all because you couldn't just let the spear hit you like a normal ritual combat participant. The elder Dramian made a sound that might have been a chuckle. The binding ceremony must be performed before sunset. You have 2 hours to prepare, Commander Vexra, Ambassador Chen. This is a most auspicious day for interspecies relations. As the elders departed, Vexra and Marcus stood facing each other, bound by an ancient law neither of them fully understood. So, Marcus said after an awkward silence, attempting a smile, got any tips on how to be a good spearcatch partner? Cultural collision. The binding ceremony took place in the Temple of Ancestral Warriors, a structure so ancient that parts of it were literally fossilized. Marcus stood awkwardly in his hastily modified diplomatic uniform, while Vexra wore her full ceremonial armor, which made her look twice as intimidating and 3 times as annoyed. For the 17th time, Vexra hissed under her breath as they waited for the high priest to arrive. When the incense burns blue, you must recite the oath of mutual protection. Not before, not after. When it burns blue. Blue incense, oath of protection, got it, Marcus nodded, sweating slightly under the triple sun heat pouring through the temple skylights. Any other last-minute tips that might prevent an interplanetary incident? Yes. Try not to catch any more ceremonial objects. You've done quite enough catching for one day. Her mandibles clicked in dry amusement, which Marcus decided to take as a promising sign. The high priest entered, a Dramian so ancient his scales had turned almost transparent. He carried a massive book bound in what looked suspiciously like cured hide, which Marcus desperately hoped wasn't from a sentient species. We are gathered to witness the binding of warriors, the priest intoned, his voice surprisingly powerful. A bond formed in combat, sealed in ceremony, to last until death separates. The next hour was a blur of archaic Dramian phrases, ritual movements, and increasingly specific oaths. Marcus struggled to keep up, painfully aware that one mistranslation could turn this diplomatic crisis into a catastrophe. Vexra, to his surprise, occasionally whispered corrections or clarifications, seemingly unwilling to let him fail completely, even though this ceremony was the last thing she wanted. When it was finally over, they were officially bound according to Dramacian law. The assembled officials and warriors dispersed, leaving the new pair to figure out what came next. So, what happens now? Marcus asked as they exited the temple into the violet evening light of Dramv. Now we must share quarters, Vexra stated matter-of-factly. As the binding requires proximity at all times. Your ship or my dwelling? Choose. Marcus nearly tripped on the temple steps. Share quarters. As in, live together. Did you think the bound for life part was metaphorical? Vexra's scales shifted to a pattern that his translator identified as exasperation. The binding requires physical proximity. The ancient laws state. Yes, but surely in diplomatic situations, there's some flexibility, Marcus interjected. The Earth delegation has prepared quarters for me on the diplomatic compound. And now they will accommodate me as well, Vexra said with finality. Unless you prefer my warrior barracks, shared with 40 other elite fighters, most of whom are still processing the fact that their commander is now bound to a soft-skinned alien. Marcus winced. The diplomatic compound sounds perfect. They walked in silence through the capital city, drawing stares from every Dramian they passed. Marcus noticed Vexra's posture growing increasingly rigid with each curious onlooker. You know, he ventured carefully, on Earth, we have a saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Vexra's head tilted in confusion. Your translator is malfunctioning. What are lemons? What is lemonade? And what do either have to do with our situation? It means finding the best in a bad situation, Marcus explained. Look, neither of us wanted this, but we're stuck with it, at least for now. Maybe instead of fighting it, we can use it to benefit both our peoples. How exactly would being chained to you benefit Dram? Vexra's tone was skeptical, but he noticed she was actually listening. You were going to lead a diplomatic mission. I am a diplomatic mission. You know your people, I know mine. Together, we might actually forge an alliance stronger than either of us could alone. He shrugged. Just a thought. Vexra was silent for several moments as they continued walking. Finally, she spoke. Human diplomatic quarters typically include bathing facilities, correct? Yes, of course, Marcus replied, confused by the sudden change of topic. Good. Dramians require daily submersion in mineral-rich fluid to maintain scale health. I will need a bath large enough for full immersion, water temperature at precisely 42 degrees Celsius, with these mineral supplements. She handed him a data chip. Also, I sleep hanging upside down. I will need an appropriate suspension bar installed. Marcus stared at her. You're actually considering making this work? I am a Dramian warrior. We adapt to battlefield conditions. No matter how bizarre they may be.